Did you know that three letters, C.O.E., can add $100,000 to the cost of a car? Welcome to Singapore, home to the most expensive cars and second-hand cars in the world.
The Mercedes-Benz is one of the most popular second-hand cars in Singapore. As you can see, the 6-year-old car is over $100,000. This can buy 2 new similar cars in Germany.
Rev's Julienne went on a journey through her approximately 730 square kilometer home country to try and uncover why cars cost so much in Singapore. So what is the COE, or the Certificate of Entitlement? Before you can buy a new car in Singapore, you need to have a highly coveted permit that allows you to own and drive a car for 10 years.
In order to register your car, you need to have the license, which is called the COE, Certificate of Entitlement, before you can register a car and put it on the road.
Since Singapore is a zero-growth market with only around 600,000 private cars allowed on the road at any point in time, there are only around 600,000 COEs in existence. New COEs can only be issued once older cars are deregistered, taken off the road, and scrapped. When this happens, a bidding process gets underway, and these vital certificates go under the hammer. And since there's a limited supply, they aren't cheap.
In today's market, the COE prices is so high, right? It's record. As for a Honda Fit, a small car, you have to pay 101,000 just for the certificate of entitlement to register your car. And beside this, you have to pay the tax, ARF, the GST, custom duty, everything. It will add up.
When you buy a new car in Singapore, you don't just pay for the car itself. You pay for the car and the certificate of entitlement. And when you buy a used car, the cost of the COE is built into the price tag of the car. But how expensive the second-hand car will be depends on its condition and how many years are left on the existing COE.
I drive a E92 M3, a BMW. I bought it second-hand, so it was about 114,000. Because cars in Singapore is very expensive, that's without a doubt. But I myself, I am a fan of cars, so I like cars a lot. So despite the price, I will try my best to be able to afford the car that I want.
To understand why the COE exists, we need to head back to the 90s when Singapore first experienced an economic boom. As the number of people who could afford cars increased, measures were needed to ensure the number of cars in the tiny country didn't result in endless traffic jams. Road taxes did little to deter people, so the COE came into play. It moved the car from a necessity to a luxury, which it remains to this day. For some, though, it's a highly practical requirement.
It's really a necessity mode of transport for day-to-day routine, bringing kids to school, for tuitions, and sending the old folks to medical checkups.
For others, it's an indulgence.
Driving to me is a luxury and something that I enjoy. It's more like a hobby than just getting from point A to point B. I really enjoy her. She's kind of quite precious to me, in a way like a grown man's foolish toy.
There's another reason COEs exist. Singapore today is hoping to transition to a CarLite country, with an emphasis on walking, cycling, and public transport. So it's doing everything possible to dissuade the use of cars in a bid to be clean and green. As we've already said, COEs don't last a lifetime. After an initial period of 10 years, the car owner in Singapore has 2 choices. Either pay to renew your COE for a further 5 or 10 years, which can be an expensive affair, or have your car deregistered, which means it either gets scrapped and you get paid for its metal value, or it gets exported to another part of the world.
I scrapped the car and I replaced it with a second-hand car. The process was different. So I was looking at the papers, and then the papers, when they registered the car, I got a call saying that, okay, please send the export papers. Then I realized that it wasn't going to scrap heat, but it was going to the UAE. So I guess right now my car has a second life in the desert somewhere in Dubai or something.
Of course, while that means Singapore keeps its emissions in check, the problem simply gets exported.
The fact that the vehicle still is being operated, used, and driven around in another country means that from a planet's perspective, the greenhouse gas emissions, carbon emissions will still persist.
But Singapore is still powering ahead with its CarLite plans. Aided by the likes of Professor Jason Pomeroy and his team of urban planners.
You can take the bus, you can take the train, you can walk to your final destination without having to actually step foot into a car. If anything, we should be increasing those taxes on cars, which I think is a good thing to keep cars off the street.
And at the time of filming, the cost of COEs had climbed higher than ever before.
Today's market, the COE prices is so high. A Japanese car will cost you easily above 150 to 190,000.
It's made some Singaporeans reconsider driving.
Because like in the case of my current car, a year and a half ago, I was prepared to basically give it up and to do what is necessary. But at that point of scrapping, this car came available through my repair shop and I picked it up. So it gave me another 2 years of driving and stuff. So again, when this car's time runs out at the end of the year, it will be the same thing.
While others are willing to go to extreme lengths to retain the freedom driving brings with it.
So other than being a property agent, I do other jobs on the side as well to ensure multiple streams of income. I mean, the grass always seems greener on the other side, but since I'm born here and the prices here are like that, so I guess we have to make do with it.
But just how much would they shell out for a COE?
As long as I can afford it.
Oh, that is something that I've not really given so much thought about. So I think that question is a little bit hard for me to answer right now. We'll just have to see how it turns out in the future.
In the meanwhile, like many other Singaporeans, Rev's Julienne Chan relies on public transport and ride-sharing services to get around her home country. What do you think of Singapore's approach to cars, emissions, and city planning? Let us know in the comments below.